Of course, within the coverage on Kashmir, we rarely get to hear the perspective of Pakistan-administered Jammu and Kashmir, which we from the region, within our daily lexicon, refer to as Azad Kashmir. And to fill this gap, I have with me colleagues and friends, experts on the region, including Dr. Qaiser Ahmed, who is an Associate Professor of Politics and International Relations at Quaid I Azam University, where he was also the Registrar. And he's the author of the book, The Pakistan Factor and the Competing Perspectives in India. We also have Dr. Javaid Hayat, who's joining us from Canada. He's a political scientist and got his PhD at Freie University in Berlin. And he is the author of Azad Kashmir, Politics, Policy and Power Sharing, and he's currently based in Canada. And we're very honoured to have with us Professor Zafar Khan, who is a political scientist. He's also a senior member of the Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front, commonly known as the JKLF, and is probably perhaps most recently famously known for his participation in the debate on Kashmir at the Oxford Union. And I'm Dr. Sarina Hussain. I'm a sociologist at the Centre for Peace and Security, where I'm an associate professor. I'm also a non-resident scholar at the Institute for Regional Studies in Islamabad. So, Qaiser, thank you so much for joining us. I think I'd like to hand over to you just to give us a background on the recent incidents and how they escalated.
Oh, well, thank you, Sarina. The recent events and the turn of those events are indeed very unfortunate because the way the situation has developed and its aftermath, it was very horrendous. Reason being, it came after in the backdrop of a tragic incident which took place in Pahalgam. So, where 26 tourists were, brutally, they were murdered. So India, it simply just went ahead with its rhetoric and polemic, which they often do. Without going into any investigation, without going into any details, without sharing any iota of evidence with the per se, not with Pakistan, but with the international community even. So, they went ahead when they assigned responsibility to Pakistan and Pakistan-sponsored organizations. So, and within within less than 24 hours, they have suspended Indus Water Treaty. This was a very momentous development because this treaty was the one which has survived 1965's war. It has survived 1971's war. It has, in fact, survived the limited war of Kargil. But, you see, this time the BJP's muscular nationalism and BJP's polemic was, and the nationalistic drive was so overpowering that, they had to come up with this very significant development. And in fact, I wrote back in November 2019 that Indus Water Treaty would be the next surprise Modi-led government would rack upon Pakistan. So the reason for that prediction and my analysis regarding that was that it's our very reductive understanding that BJP is just merely a political party. BJP is more an ideological impetus. It is more a religious political party with a ideological agenda. You see these things which BJP is recently doing. They have been always there on to the wish list and the agenda of their RSS founding fathers like Savarkar and people. So, abrogation of the Article 370, downgrading the status of minorities, particularly Indian Muslims, and the kind of the hype which they have created that signaled that India would come up with something more jingoistic, something more bellicose when it comes to India dealing with Pakistan. And very, very importantly, and very significantly, there has developed and precipitated a mindset in India where India feels itself, envisages itself as a great nation and as a great power, which no longer feels itself subdued before the underpinnings of international law. They think that international law is for the lesser nations, and India, being a world power, has impunity to operate unilaterally as Americans do. So see, this has been affirmed in after Pulwama as well. This is this has been even authenticated with the transnational killing squad, which has been operative when the very tragic incidents which took place in Canada. So and people were being attacked in USA and other parts of the world. So this understanding that India is not subdued, or India is not bowed down under international law, or this very understanding that international law is for the lesser nations, it's deeply problematic. So this has led to this very uncharacteristic development, and you see the way Indians, they try to operate. I mean, this time, though their narrative, their polemic, it hasn't been held by the international community. It hasn't been affirmed by the international community. The entire world was left in dismay. Where is the evidence? So, and this is what we have witnessed in this entire unfolding. That Indians, they wanted to act unilaterally, they wanted to be punitive, they wanted to teach Pakistan a lesson, and maybe they felt very confident with the entry of the Rafales into their aerial combat, and they thought that with this it is the high time and a greater opportunity to subdue Pakistan once for all. So, but you see the way this has ended up has amassed, I guess, very greater embarrassment for the Modi-led government, and they are facing now challenges at home and the challenges of credibility at global level as well.
And Kaiser, am I right in thinking you were there when this all unfolded? You were visiting at the time.
Sorry, pardon?
You were in Azad Kashmir when some of this happened?
I was there. I was there when this entire this eventuality took place. I was there.
And what was the feeling on the ground? What was the mood on the ground amongst the local people?
Well, Serena, I mean, I would like to state a quote over here from a novel. I mean, I don't exactly remember the title, but I read it somewhere. In the big cities live the big demons, and then there are the big angels who come and fight with them to restore the balance of the nature. But at the end, but at the loss are always the poor human beings who serve as an arena of the local Armageddon. So this people were literally, they were scared. I mean, but they cannot be cannon and fodder to the collateral damage of this high politics. So you see what has been happening around the line of control, and the way people have been targeted. Even a kid. I mean, that's a very horrifying picture. A very minor kid who has died in this in Portly. So and this cross-border firing, this unprovoked aggression on either sides. So it was. I mean, I think there is a prevailing sentiment in Azad Kashmir. I mean. You remember, in fact, when we were doing this discussion back, 1 year ago at the British Sociological Organization, the conference, the annual conference of British, I mean, what was that, BSIA?
British Sociological Association. Kaiser and I were on a panel together.
Yeah, we were on a panel, and we were discussing about this nature and the underpinnings of the social movement which has emerged in Azad Kashmir. So my very first line of analysis, even for that and for this, your particular question is that people of Azad Kashmir, they have felt themselves, being alienated after August of 5th, 2019. There is a prevailing sense of detachment. The people, they think they were left on their own. I mean, this was a big striking blow, for the Kashmiris, and the way it was handled. I mean, it was criminally negligent. The demeanor in which this entire thing was handled. I mean, no appropriate and adequate response. Even even I would say even at the level of rhetoric, we could not. Could do well. So that thing is continuing. That sentiment is now ever present. So that consternation still goes on there. So people of Azad Kashmir, they now, I mean, they pose you very critical questions regarding, I mean, being the collateral damage to this high politics. So dying on the either sides of the line of control. So that was something which I witnessed there, and while having interacted with the people over there, people they think, Kashmiris. I mean, where are them? In fact, Zafar Saab has long ago coined a very immaculate terminology, invisible Kashmiris. So that's very unfortunate. I mean that even in, you see, this in this entire catastrophic eventuality, the discussion on Kashmiris, it was outrightly missing.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great place. Thank you so much, Kessa, to bring Professor Zafar in, because I know you've obviously been working on this for a very long time. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is, of course, India and Pakistan have had standoffs before and, really serious escalations. But how do you think this one compared to what has happened previously?
Well, I think at the outset, we must actually tell our audience and that the ceasefire line, and I say ceasefire line with a lot of conviction rather than LOC, because there is a difference, and I perhaps if I have an opportunity later on, maybe I'll say something about it.
I mean, you're very welcome to
Yeah.
now.
This has been going on. For example, the ceasefire line, and people particularly around the ceasefire line, sort of a distance of at least 5-6 miles, or maybe 7-8-9 kilometers, and so on, always were impacted by sort of exchanges of fire, even not just sort of even gunfire, sort of mortar fire and all that, and so people are used to actually sort of expecting that sort of thing when India and Pakistan and their forces actually begin to fire at each other. But this time, and Kassar Sahib has actually in many ways, and in so many ways as hinted at that and also said it, this time it was much bigger. And in my lifetime, which I mean, I remember things that were happening in 1960. Before that, I don't remember much, but from 60 onwards, and I remember the 1965 war as a youngster. That there were a certain points where the heavy guns and the fire of the heavy guns would come. But this time, and I have never heard, apart from in 1947, when Indian aeroplanes actually bombed areas around Kotli and maybe around Mirpur, parts of Mirpur, Chakswari, and so on. But this time we had these measures, pointed sort of rockets or missile fire in Kotli itself and surrounding villages, right from the ceasefire line, from north and also south, southeast, particularly coming from Kotli district myself originally, and all those areas were which people would feel that they were away from the shells and bombs and so on. This time they were affected, and I think Kassar Saab mentioned the young child. I think it was 10 or 12. I forget his name. A very beautiful, very handsome young boy, who was one of the first casualties in Kotli, and the village, and these bombs actually and rockets fell from all sorts of directions, very different directions, and I rang and contacted my members of my family, and of course I said, how are things? वो कैसे हैं, वो कैसे हैं, वो कैसे हैं? And I was told that certain children were really very scared. Not all, but one of my nieces and one of my nephew's daughter, they were really very scared. And that's understandable. I mean, if you're a 5-year-old or if you're even 20-year-old or 22-year-old, fear is something that is inherently, present, always present in all of us. And of course, then there were deaths, and people heard of those deaths not very far away. Maybe people dying in the following next village and so on and so forth. And I think, Kaisar Saab, you would agree with me that we were watching it or looking at it from here, like thousands of miles away, and concerned and so on and so forth. But I think the Indians this time, they just didn't confine themselves to the disputed region. They went and violated the international
border as well, yeah.
international border, just as they did in 1965 and so on. But the casualties, the number of casualties, I have no idea. What the casualties were of so military personnel throughout this 4 or 5 days of war, more or less a kind of open war. But in Azad Kashmir, lots and lots of civilians actually were killed, and I think also civilians were killed on the Indian occupied part of it.
Just because you just said so, I even today, BBC has published a very heartrending story, BBC Urdu, on this thing, and according to that story, I mean 7 women and 15 kids. I mean, and in altogether 40 people in total. Onto this side they were killed.
Yeah, and to that extent, I think, Sarina, this is the first time since the sort of 40s, late 40s, 49, when the ceasefire line actually came into being in I think in January 1949, that this number of civilians on this side of Kashmir perished. But of course, unfortunately, a similar pattern also takes place on the Indian occupied side of the ceasefire line, and of course, despite taking great care, and I know know lots of relatives and all that who are in the military and so on, and have served in the military, members of family, that they take great care in when they are trying to actually respond to a fire, that it does not actually go into civilian areas, and there is an understanding that people on the other side are also our kith and kin and so on and so forth, and that is a basis of, if you like, the struggle in general of reunification and self-determination in the former sort of kingdom of Jammu Kashmir and so on. So I mean, I think this time it was really very frightening to the civilians, and despite what we hear from the Indian government spokespeople, they actually did target civilians in Azad Kashmir. I am not saying anything about Pakistan, and I think they bombed cities also in Pakistan, but I have spoken to people in Kotli particularly, who are my relatives, my members of family, and other people who have actually said, and I know the area like a back of my hand, and particular villages and little docks and villages and moizas where you can who died and who got injured and so on. So I think this time people were really people didn't know what was happening this time. But of course, looking at it from a more sort of a political perspective, and I think this was a deliberate, and I try to rationalize this after the Palgam incident, which I condemn, and most Kashmiris condemned it on both sides of the ceasefire line. And in fact, I'm sure the people in Pakistan also condemned it. But it seems right from the outside that the Indian government was intent upon using this as a pretext, just as if you remember, Zarina, the former governor of Indian occupied Kashmir, Satyapal Malik, I mean, he sort of spilled the beans on Pulwama in February 2019, and last year he spilled the beans, and he said, well, it was all they knew what was happening and who it was, and how it happened, and so on, and so I mean I mean, one can't be 100% sure, but that it tilts on the side that the Indian authorities were privy to what was happening, what went on, and how they were going to react to that. And Qaiser Saab is absolutely right that they have been, over the past, I think, a dozen years or so, at least the decade, that they've been trying to act as the sort of the boss, just as emulating the Americans, or even in the Middle East, the way the Israelis actually they shoot first and then they start to respond, or whatever way they want to respond, and so that as the attitude that even 2-3 days ago, the Indian Defense Minister, Mr. Rajnath, he sort of reiterated all those sentiments and that kind of attitude. And he's, I think, currently, yesterday he was in the valley itself, and all sorts of sort of rhetorical questions and speeches about. And I'm not convinced that this ceasefire will hold. I hope and I pray to God that it does hold, because war is not a solution. Solution in Kashmir, war will not resolve it. And I think this 4 or 5 days war has actually proved that Pakistan is also not going to be easily dislodged. And absolutely, Qaiser Saab, you are right that since August 2019, the Kashmiris, not just in Azad Kashmir, but in Azad Kashmir, it is more symbolic, you see, as the impact is more important in terms of the sort of attitude of Azad Kashmiris in general about Pakistan and so on and so forth. And this time, I think the Kashmiris right across the board were really dismayed, and there is a quietness on the Indian occupied side of Kashmir, and there are reasons. There are a million almost million military and paramilitary forces, plus the kind of tight control on the people, but there is also a kind of, I think, deliberate quiet on the part of Kashmiris. They are watching, they are listening, and they are actually visualizing what's going to happen, and they are not happy. But in Azad Kashmir, we are relatively free to air our views, and people have been on the street, as it were, over the best part of past 1 year, and so there is a kind of a sort of a standing up attitude now, that they are not going to take it lying down. But I think Azad Kashmir is I mean, Pakistan has to wake up to the feeling in Azad Kashmir, and in a way Azad Kashmir appears to be a reflection of the sort of steely quietness of the people of the Indian occupied Kashmir. And we do actually reflect certain sentiments that should be taken note of. And I think that the solution, as I was saying, is more through the people of Jammu Kashmir rather than through the war. No matter how many armaments both sides, and in fact both sides are nuclear states, and they have the ultimate weapon. And ultimately, as Najim Sethi said somewhere, we all go to heaven. And in the case of these two powers, it's very much probable if they don't actually think about it. And I'm very glad that they were brought back from the brink this time. Um, uh, um, um, Maybe the Americans did that, maybe the Muslim bloc did that, but I think perhaps the Indians and Pakistanis also thought that perhaps they made a point. But the point, if you stop here after such carnage and the potential that this has shown us in the subcontinent, then that would not serve anybody's cause. India and Pakistan are two great countries. And as Qaiser Saab, you would agree with this sentiment that we Kashmiris have always wanted Kashmir to become a bridge of peace between India and Pakistan. But unfortunately, they have kept us. They have kept us because of their bilateral sort of focus. They have kept us more and more invisible and in the background. And this time, I think there is a feeling that we're not going to remain invisible. And I think you will see more political and diplomatic, both at home and abroad, a kind of expression of this sentiment.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Zafar. I mean, I think you're right. There is still a sense of uneasiness around the ceasefire, and I know that there were reports immediately after the ceasefire was announced that there was still cross-border firing that seemed to go on for at least a couple of days, depending on reports. So yes, it feels as though it's still, that tension still hasn't fully lifted.
The small arms fire actually continues from here and there. These are the reports that one hears, and I'm sure Qaiser Saab, right from Bimber up to wherever the ceasefire line ends. There are now, I think they are more prone to actually using small arms sort of responses against each other than they were before.
Yeah, Javaid, if I can, I just wanted to bring you on because, of course, you've researched and written extensively on Azad Kashmir, and as your book title, which I'm going to read again just to make sure that I didn't get it wrong, Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Politics, Polity and Power Sharing. I wondered from your perspective, if you would be able to say something about the role of the Azad Kashmir government in this, whether you feel that they had any say in how this played out, or even in the negotiations in the ceasefire, because I know certainly from previous conversations we didn't really hear very much from them, did we, during this episode?
Oh, thank you, Serena, and thank you for having us together today. The reason is, I believe it's very timely intervention, and my fellow panelists, Dr. Qaiser and Professor Zafar, already have said so much, and they didn't leave too much for me to add, honestly, and it would be a repetition again if I just go back what they said. In terms of Azad Kashmir role, it's very unfortunate, but there is a history behind it, and there are reasons behind that. If you look when this government was established in 1947, even if you look or read the first declaration, you will see it was entirely different. It was meant to be an independent state between India and Pakistan, having good relation with both neighboring countries with India and Pakistan, and that is written in the first declaration as well. But you have rightly observed and seen that the role of Azad Kashmir government is very limited. The reason is it is not allowed to act and in a way that they can represent erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir. And there is a long history behind it. If I'll go back and start talking from 1947 to 55 and 60 and onwards, it's gonna take a lot of time of this discussion today. But there are some aspect where we need to actually, as a researcher and Kashmiris living from different parts of divided state of Jammu and Kashmir, what is the human cost of this conflict, and who are the ultimate victims of this conflict? As Dr. Zafar said, the human cost, he highlighted a little bit about that. And ultimate sufferer are the people who are living across the ceasefire line. He's rightly said that we should continually using the term ceasefire line because there is a logic behind it. Um, Again, I will not go into those details because it's gonna eat all of your time. But I believe, and second aspect is what is the role of people who are living abroad, like in the UK or United States and in Canada and other countries, because the people who are living in divided parts of Kashmir, they are doing their part somehow, whatever they can, in their limited capacity and under the control of the government they are right now. But the big miscontact, I will say, a connect where we need to play our role is the diaspora Kashmiris. Um, and second part is because of this conflict, the recent, initially you said I would prefer to call it a war. Um, Again, there is a realization that Kashmir issue need to be resolved. You see in 2019, from India's perspective, the Jammu and Kashmir were done and dusted, after after August 9, 2019. But with the recent episode, the world again started realizing that there are underlying causes of the war, or the issue between India and Pakistan. And one of the strongest causes is the Kashmir conflict, and world knows that. And this is where our role begins to add with, to start with. And this is a good sign. I'm not saying war is a good thing, because war brings miseries, war brings more problems. War is not a solution at all. But there is an opportunity because of this conflict, and this recent episode, for the people of Kashmir, no matter where they are living. We are in the divided state of Jammu and Kashmir in the different parts, or they are living in the broad. There is a very unique opportunity for us actually to plan and see what is coming ahead. Because if you look at the way India have tried to deal this whole issue, as Dr. Qaiser said, within less than 12 hours, they actually kind of, you know,
given the verdict.
Yeah, kind of gave the verdict that Pakistan is the ultimate, the country who did that without, and so far even they failed to produce any evidence. And if this is even the case, then there are procedure in international law, as Dr. Qaiser initially said. So my opinion is now at this point, look at where this whole thing is going, and redirect our understanding how we need to deal with that. Yeah, thank you.
Sarina, I would like to chip in. I mean,
Please, of course.
Javaid had made a very, striking point. I mean, and I would like to add to that regarding, the invisibility of Azad Kashmir government. I mean, okay, besides this fact that, there is a very little room for the Azad Kashmir government to play autonomously or to come up with a narrative of its own. But having said that, what is my primary observation regarding this functioning and the way, the modus operandi of Azad Kashmir government, that these politicians who are continuing to rule Azad Kashmir, I mean, they have imposed a kind of self-censorship over them. I mean, they find themselves self-restrained to speak onto certain contentious issues. There have been, I mean, towering personalities who have had, maintained a narrative that was not completely in line with Pakistan's perspective, like K.H. Khurshid was he very gracefully has maintained his own understanding and has exhibited that over many forums, and the way he upheld that. I mean, the very unfortunate thing regarding this. I mean, when I say that of after August 5th, 2019, this entire thing was mishandled. In fact, I remember I was once invited at a forum where even the then foreign minister of Pakistan was there. My suggestion to them was that India has confiscated Kashmir's special status. They have re-annexed and reoccupied Kashmir. I mean, you can, take a lead by giving more liberty and autonomy to Azad Kashmir, and to make it, more representative government, and to let them speak to the world, that what is the issue on hand. That would add more legitimacy and more credibility to Kashmir narrative. And in fact, even in Javed's book, he has used one very spectacular term, inclusive and indigenous narrative. That incrementally engage all the conflict geographies. I mean, Kashmir is not just Srinagar. You have Ladakh, you have Jammu, you have Gilgit Baltistan, you have Azad Kashmir. So, you need to come up with an inclusive and indigenous narrative that aligns with this diversity. So, but unfortunately, the way things unfolded, you see, right after the revocation of the Article 370, the discussion which became, at the fore run in Azad Kashmir was the scrapping down of 13th Amendment. I mean, the autonomy which was given to Azad Kashmir in the wake of 13th Amendment, in the 14th Amendment should step in, and this autonomy should be stripped off. And very next to that was announcing Gilgit-Baltistan to be the provisional province, I mean, of Pakistan. I mean, these things were very unnecessary and very untimely, and has created, a very entrenched resentment into the people of Azad Kashmir, diaspora people, and the people who have the very sympathy and attachment to this cause. So in fact, at this point, you see, Kashmiris, they are the most vulnerable right now. You see that India tried to make an incursion through international border, and they have been given a very adequate and a very jaw-breaking response. So I mean, now they would this madness had a method. You see, BJP was reduced to 240 seats in Lok Sabha, where they were eyeing at 400 seats. Their slogan was "Ab ki baar 400 par." So they were reduced to 240 seats. So this raising this media jingoism, raising this muscular nationalism, going hard against Pakistan, was actually the part of the plot to reignite the nationalistic sentiment, and to spearhead BJP's losing popularity within India. So you see, it is not going to,
Yeah,
Yes,
I just want to add to what Qaiser Saab is saying, and also Javed Saab. I think in the context of AJK government, and or in the context of AJK, in terms of the territory that Pakistan governs, and it has to be actually said that both India and Pakistan govern the respective territories under their control as proxies and as trustees on behalf of the United Nations. So that's a very important element in this if you like dispute, if you like it. And that's another term that we sort of a anti-status quo people in politics don't use. We say Kashmir issue. For us, that sort of symbolizes the situation. Now, the AJK basically was found wanting in August 2019. You see, Pakistani government was found wanting, and that's another story, because Pakistan is also party to the dispute, if you like, the Kashmir dispute between India and Pakistan. But Pakistan and India do not have any right on Kashmir. They have claims. So that's another distinction. And the leadership in Azad Kashmir has not come up to the objectives of, as Javed Saab says, about the sort of original sort of setting up the government of the Republic of Azad Jammu and Kashmir. the republic. And I in the previous election, the last election of AJK, I was asked by my party to write a white paper on the election, and by the way, we boycotted that election. Personally, I wasn't in favor of boycotting, because as Democrats, we should either keep quiet or take part in processes. But I wrote the paper, and I sort of say, well, look, what the sort of condition of the Republic of Azad Jammu and Kashmir has become. From 4th of August, reconstituted on 24th of October, to 4th of October, and reconstituted on 24th of October 1947, to now, to 2025, or 3 years ago when the last election took place. So that is due mainly to, they work in a confined, the context of, the 1974 Kashmir Act and so on and so forth. But they have certain level of leverage and sort of flexibility. And you're absolutely right, they don't exercise it. They don't exercise it because they don't want to lose their seat, because they know they're looking over their shoulders, both shoulders, not one shoulder, both shoulders, that there are people waiting in the wings to actually pounce on them and give the proverbial salute to the powers across the river Jhelum, either in Islamabad or in Rawalpindi. So I mean, that's a tragedy on the part of people who rule us in Muzaffarabad. And the other element is that AJK is not simply the 4,000 plus square miles of territory from Taobat to Bimbar. It is also Gilgit-Baltistan. And that is another, sort of folly for which the leadership of Azad Jammu Kashmir is actually responsible. And this is where Pakistan could have actually taken a sort of a step above Indian sort of character in Indian occupied Kashmir, by actually reuniting these territories and facilitating a governance system that was democratic and reflected the actually more or less the kind of democratic aspirations of the people. Now there are about 6 million people in both territories, as opposed to about 14 to 16 million maybe where there isn't a consensus sort of census of Indian occupied Kashmir. So I mean, we're talking about a symbolism which is powerful in Azad Kashmir, and that was the basis of the 4th of October 1947 government that claimed itself to be the successor of the autocratic Maharaja. And this is where they came wanting on 5th of August 2019, because that was the time when India had abolished and dissolved in the previous year in 2018. They demolished and dissolved the assembly, local assemblies, and there was a vacuum. And the AJK government could have stepped in and claimed its heritage, that from then on it was representing the entire state of Jammu and Kashmir, since there was no government in existence of the Kashmiris, on the other side of the ceasefire line. This and actually we made representations to political figures who were in governance at that time, and they sort of lip service, but they did not act on it. As for Pakistan, I think Pakistan should have done what they have actually said very in a mute way this time, that they want to walk away from Shimla Agreement. That is what they should have done in August 2019. And I have been saying it even before 2019, that they should walk away from this. And this is why, Serena, we do not call it LOC, we call it ceasefire line ever since 1972. Now, of course, I'm not saying that there is a sort of a three-line whip on everyone who is anti status quo to say ceasefire line, but in all our we make sure that we adhere to this principle that it is very temporary. And ceasefire, if we say LOC, that means we have recognized another step towards the end of our sort of a end of our possible sort of a journey towards the ultimate of realizing independence or self-determination and so on.
Sarina, I would like to conclude. Zafar Saab has
Please
made a
do.
very, very timely intervention and has added, a very, comprehensive dimension to our ongoing discussion. So my point, which I was trying to say is that Pakistan has not just downed India's Rafales. It's basically Modi's ego that has been downed as well. And who is the soft target? I mean, you cannot expect this madness to settle down, I mean, in this way, that they would be embarrassed and they would just put up with this embarrassment. So the most vulnerable, the most would you could say that the soft target would be people across this line of control. So they are likely to face the blow. I mean, India, I can never, buy this thing that they won't react to what has happened, because the way it has concluded, it is a watershed moment for India. So they one thing. Secondly, very importantly, I mean, at times, we even in our choice of words are doing very injustice to the things. I mean, you see, when we say Kashmir dispute, so dispute, it has more territorial connotation. You are actually not including that it is basically the right of 25 million Kashmiris to live with dignity and their right to rule themselves. So this is not something which is demanded, far-fetched, or which is out of proposition. This is enshrined in the UN Charter, that the people, they have this right to self-determination. So even when I say that after August of 5th, 2019, I again believe that that was a very climactic and a very uncharacteristic development, and was very badly handled. Pakistan had some very out of the box the policy options which they could have exercised, as Zafar Saab has said, and I also said that that was the high time to revoke Simla, because that would have took Pakistan away from the bent of bilateralism. So apart from that, I mean, the Pakistan could have incrementally engaged Baltistan and Azad Kashmir, and to make that as the representative,
or Azad Kashmir into Gilgit-Baltistan. I mean,
or Azad Kashmir into Gilgit-Baltistan,
reunited the two territories of the state. And also, I may forget, because I've advanced years and I usually forget things. On 6th or 7th of September, the Foreign Minister of Pakistan in August 2019 made a speech on the floor of the Pakistan Assembly, and he said Kashmir banega Pakistan. Well, look, okay, that's a political slogan. Now, the Indians have just annexed Kashmir, which went against all the historic sort of, if you like, context of the Kashmir issue itself. And in a way, they kicked you out of that issue, and you are actually helping them to further move away yourself from the Kashmir issue by saying Kashmir banega Pakistan, maybe Kashmir banega Pakistan. But again, there is a process to achieving that. And you can't simply stand in your parliament and say that, which the Indians stand in their Lok Sabha and say. And so that brought him very much at par with India in the eyes of the Kashmiris. And that's where I said that instead of saying that, which didn't help the Kashmiris in terms of Kashmir issue, he should have gone to the Kohala Bridge with the text of the Shimla Agreement, and he should have actually taken care of it by throwing it into the River Jhelum from the Kohala Bridge, and make an announcement there to the world that today our bilateralism between India and Pakistan has ended, and that would have internationalized the Kashmir issue. Now, I'm all for Pakistan moving away from Shimla Agreement as a result of their very unjust announcement about the water treaty, the Indus Water Treaty, the 1960 Indus Water Treaty. But I think the annexation of Kashmir was just as important, if not more important. If Kashmir was today an autonomous, reunified or independent sovereign entity, I mean, the waters would flow down their natural path without any hindrance. I mean, the eastern rivers are now being a sort of they call it western or whatever. Western rivers, those three rivers are controlled by India. Three rivers, Chenab and those rivers are basically controlled by India. And if Kashmir is free, then the waters will flow downstream without any hindrance. And these are mind you, are Kashmiri waters. Allah Ta'ala ki ata hai, but they run through Kashmir. They are flowing through Kashmir. They are not flowing through India. And if India claims that it is its territory, that is a claim. In reality, it does not exist. And there are a number of UN resolutions, and there even the abolition of 370, which the Kashmiris didn't demand in 1949. India itself enacted it because the so-called accession between Jammu Kashmir and India was on a tenuous ground. It was really on tenuous grounds. And at every step, Sheikh Abdullah was actually questioning the encroachment. And so eventually in 1954, Nehru actually sacked him and put another yes man, as happens in Kashmir, in Azad Kashmir. So I mean, the history is painful for us, the people of Kashmir. Our leadership has made, on the whole, has made many sacrifices, but at crucial points, Zarina, our leadership has also been found wanting, just as in August 2019 in Azad Kashmir, just as on numerous occasions in Indian occupied Kashmir. But we are where we are, and I think there is an opening, and the Kashmiris have to come together. They have to coalesce and make the demand that we will not accept to remain invisible any longer. This is our land, and it is our lives, and we are at the receiving end, as Kaiser Saab says, at whenever there is a flare up, whenever there is a open conflict, and we have been a victim of that since 1947, and we don't want that anymore. And it's people across both sides of the ceasefire line they have an opportunity now to actually raise their voice. But I know it's very difficult for our brethren across the ceasefire line in Indian occupied Kashmir, because every part of their life is public and private is actually controlled, and it's controlled. You try and make a couple of phone calls to your contacts 2 or 3 times, and I can guarantee you that on third time, your contact or your colleague or friend or whoever, they will be taken away to the local police station, and that happens. And it's just like the controls in West Bank of Palestine. Exactly that kind of procedure and regime is being used in Srinagar and Indian occupied Kashmir in general. So there is, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you so much. I think that's probably a good place to conclude this, and I think you're right that this is a potential moment. We were at this crossroads in 2019 after the abrogation, but we're here again. We're at another really critical point in history. I would say we were also, as Azad Kashmiris, at a really crucial point exactly a year ago, with the Joint Awami Action Committee
Selena,
protests.
if you could just permit, I would ask Javed, because that inclusive and indigenous narrative, if you could just bring that in the discussion, because that's I think a way forward, the actual way forward for us. So if you could allow, I mean, we can stretch for some more minutes, but I would want Javed to please shed some light on that, because it was his argument, so he can, I guess,
So thank you, Dr.
illuminated.
Qaiser. Actually, when I use this term, I mean to say people living across the divided state of Jammu and Kashmir.
Yeah.
It was not confined to only Azad Jammu and Kashmir.
Yeah.
But just to add few comments before we conclude this discussion today, there were so many occasions where Pakistan has missed the opportunities to reposition itself and take a diplomatic advantage. And that was most recent was, I would say, 2019. But they again missed it. But I used to say this again and again whenever I have a chance to talk with my Kashmiri colleagues, that it's very easy to criticize the role of India and Pakistan, but we need to understand they are nation states, and they are, whether we agree or disagree with them, they are acting to save their own vested interest, So where we need to self-reflect is taking the note from Dr. Qaiser. We need to actually work on bringing and strengthening inclusive and indigenous narrative. Narrative is the key, which so far we have been failed to establish across the divided lines. When I say divided state of Jammu and Kashmir, I refer it to all parts which are currently under the control or administration of either India or Pakistan. So this is where we need to reflect, because my strongest belief is that any solution will or should come from and within the state of Jammu and Kashmir. India and Pakistan both are parties to this. Again, I would not use the word dispute to this conflict in the larger context, but where the biggest missing part is not having an indigenous inclusive narrative which can reflect the perspective of the multilingual, multi-ethnic nature of former state of Jammu and Kashmir. This is where we failed all people who are originally from the state of Jammu and Kashmir, no matter where they are living. This is my kind of concluding remarks at this point.
And religious diversity as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
All diversities, regardless of any.
And of course, that can be a bridge of peace between India and Pakistan, a crossroad of prosperity in the region. And when I say region, also China. China is very important player here, and they also, control land that is also state land as well.
And
So
my just concluding remark, as my fellow colleagues have said, that this is again a very high time where the revival of national interest vis-a-vis Kashmir has again surfaced with the Trump's offer to mediation, a change scenario. Pakistan, used to be on the receiving end, but this time, having an operational upper hand. So, and the kind of, the new terms of negotiation could be set up, and this is the high time where Kashmiris they should be regarded as the primary,
And America and China have a great role here to play. Both because they have interests. One is supporting India, very much a partner in India. With India, and the other one is partner with Pakistan, and also contiguous to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So both great countries have an important and pivotal role to actually ensure that this region becomes always peaceful and prosperous, and a place of peace.
Thank you for that.
This should be the common minimum agenda, I think, that Kashmiris should be included in this very, that debate where they are missing, and it's very inhuman that they are not there, who are, the basic sufferers of this entire conflict.
Yeah, I agree. And when we had a similar conversation last week, we came to the same conclusion, and Shams Rahman said that the same thing, that we needed to bring together stakeholders from the different regions to be able to agree on a way forward internally. Also, because that hasn't happened. I'm mindful, however, that of course, as Professor Zafar said, on the other side, on the other side of the ceasefire line, or the other side of the LOC, we, as you've rightfully said, we've seen quiet, and that tension is there. It's almost palpable. We know that it's very difficult for people to participate in these kinds of conversations because of the surveillance and the security.
And of course, Serena, the leadership is in jail. And the leadership, you know, the leaders are in Tihar jail, all of them, including Yasin Malik, who's been given 2 life sentences, and other leaders who are, you know, some are being tried and others are waiting for trial. And under these circumstances, very difficult for people to even to speak or take a direction.
And I think that just to sort of conclude with Javaid's point, in that, yes, as the diaspora, we have a privileged position in the sense that we don't have the same restraints. We also have greater access to international platforms and international organizations. So I think that I'm in agreement with everything that you've all said. I just know that it's clearly a very difficult task to initiate, given the constraints that that we're facing, you know, for one reason or another. But yeah, I'm happy to give you all the final word. If anybody else wanted to say something.
Well, I think as Kashmiris, and I'm sure I speak not just for myself, but I think all 25 million of us, we all want peace. We want peace for our future generations, peace for us today, and we want reunification. We don't want to be strangers to each other in our own land. Once an Indian, actually about 30 years ago, said to me, "Oh, look, no, we also partitioned ourselves." And I said, you willingly partitioned yourself. We in Kashmir have not partitioned ourselves. We have been divided because of conflict between 2 great countries in the subcontinent. We want peace between those countries, and we want to be the basis of peace, not basis of perpetual contention and enmity. We want amity instead of enmity. And I think Kashmiris need to work towards that. And I, for one, would actually strive for that in whatever capacity, as an activist, as well as an academic, and as an ordinary Kashmiri grandfather or father, and so on and so on.
Thank you, Professor Zafar. Javaid, Qaiser, if you have any final comments, feel free to add.
You know, I would say, Serena, that in fact, I said that repeatedly, and I wrote a policy paper at that time for Pakistan Institute of Parliamentary Services, which is the official think tank of the government of Pakistan, I mean, of the Parliament of Pakistan. And I told to them that this happy-lucky trilogy of diplomatic, moral, and political support, it was relevant till August of 4th, 2019. But on August of 5th, 2019, the things, they have fundamentally changed. Now you have to come up with something. I mean, you know, India has given a surprise to you, so you have to, surprise back India. And the surprising move, it is not, I mean, just saying that we will protest. Protest is no surprise to anyone. You know, the surprise could have been, and I wrote that in paper, and it's available online. You know, I said that, you know, you can open a Jammu and Kashmir Bureau of Foreign Affairs, you know, somewhere and I suggested them in UK because of the larger presence of the diaspora over here, and UK being responsible for this mess because they were the one who left it, I mean, as an unfinished agenda of decolonization. So, and it could have been uh, engaging. I mean, these things would have been having symbolic impact. Engaging in Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Kashmir together, and offering the United Nations to have plebiscite in this part of the Kashmir. So, if though that would not have been having that legal premise, but that would have been, challenging to India to respond. That could have been, recognizing a government in exile for Azad Kashmir, for the state of Jammu and Kashmir. That would have been the real the policy options which should have worked upon. Now, again, the opportunity lies there. Again, that there is revival of national interest vis-a-vis Kashmir. International powers, they have, because they have, understood this very dimension that India and Pakistan's issues, they, in one or other way, are clubbed with Kashmir. I mean, if there is Indus Water Treaty, again, it has, it has Kashmir. If it is a cross-border terrorism, it has Kashmir inside. So, these things, they are inseparable. So, detaching Kashmir and expecting peace to thrive in South Asia, it would be far-fetched. So this is again a very high time. I mean, and Pakistan said that we reserve the right to revoke Simla. I mean, this is the very high time that they should revoke. They have the golden opportunity at this moment to get rid of the bilateralism, to revive the very template of the Kashmir conflicts jurisprudence to the January 5th, 1949, and from where it would lead to the internationalization of the conflict, and then with these international powers at play, and a renewed geopolitical context, I think this is the moment which should be seized and which should not be missed.